there are several of you that are not able to see or not able to connect because of the technical difficulties we're having today, and I very much apologize for that. Please feel free to pipe up and ask questions as we go through this. Hopefully I have addressed everything that people have asked me to talk about today. I didn't have a lot of content, and so as people sent me questions, then I came up with the agenda. I am going to talk about all of the open periods right now. And then we'll talk about CTE, FTE, and especially as it relates to percent of time, mapped courses, and ODEX. Who can have access and what kind of access can they have? And then talk about the next meeting date. Our open periods, I decided to organize these by close date. The beginning of the year student, beginning of the year SOES student collections both close on December 21st. This collection is used for FLIX reporting for community schools. It's also used for the casino count distribution based on enrollment as of the Friday of the first full week of October. And it's also used for the federal child count data. I'm going to park here for a minute and talk about the federal child count data for a few minutes. Several of you were on our training last week, but a reminder to share those reports with your special ed personnel and have them verify all of the data that is in those reports so that everything is coded accurately. We saw a higher number than normal of IEPs that were conducted in the spring, but were never reported as part of the FY20 reporting collection. Just a reminder that those IEP events, excuse me, because they were not reported, two things. Number one, in order to get funding for the weighted funding, you have to have an IEP event, and I would date it the first day of school or sometime after July 1. And it will be in effect with the compliance reason of 12. IEP was completed but never reported. It will be in effect until the next RIEP event is done. When that next IEP event, whether it's a RIEP or an AIEP, that next event needs the compliance code of 09. IEP was done but never reported. I have seen quite a few instances where in student information in the special ed event screen, individuals have put that compliance code of 9 on the one that didn't get reported. That does absolutely nothing. Because that was never reported, that will never be reported. That 9 has to go on the next RIEP event that is reported. Also, there is a change this year, but so far it is not showing up on the federal child count report, that those NIEP events are not counting for your district in the federal child count. Right now they are, but according to the documentation and the information that we've been given in our training, they are not supposed to count. those drive federal monies that the state is awarded. And right now we're awarded the federal monies based on, I don't remember what year, but it's several years back. It's not a current year submission of data. But one thing that I have been thinking about, these could have all been caught prior to the close of the final student collection in August if the FTE adjustment report is looked at on a regular basis, because I believe it's 14 days after the end date on the current IEP event that a student will appear as an adjustment that you're no longer receiving the weighted funding. And that is a trigger that, oh, there's a new IEP event that I need to report. It will not cover every instance, because we've seen a few that the IEP was good until September, but they did a new IEP in May, and that May IEP is what was not reported. So it won't cover every instance, but it will cover the majority of the instances if that FTE adjustment report is looked at regularly. We have stated multiple times, you can't just say, okay, I fixed all of my issues, I'm good, I don't have to look at that report again, because that report is an ever-changing report based on what you have submitted and what other districts have submitted, and in this case, the expiration of IEP events. Are there any questions about anything that I just talked about on federal child count and the FTE adjustment reports? Okay. The next collection is the initial staff course collection. This one closes in January 29th, and that is so that the second semester courses can be reported with the teacher of record. You can generate pivot tables for verification using the staff demographics and employment files from the data collector to verify this information. And the staff data for current year FY21 is now populating, I believe it's populating now in the SDC. All of the items that are on the local report card concerning staff data, with the exception of the attendance percentage, is driven by the initial staff course collection. So that includes all certification data. There are a couple of leeways on certification this year. First off, if a staff member had a certificate expire July 1, initially they were given until December to get that renewed. They now have until, I believe it's the end of June, and that just came out in the last couple of days. So if they have a certificate that did expire, it will be considered valid this year. But if they do not complete everything by the end of June, they will have to do additional coursework in order to get their certificate renewed. The second is for FY21 only. If you have a staff member who has a professional license or certificate with at least 3 years of experience, they can teach one grade level higher or lower than what their certificate says, and they can teach subject areas outside of what their certificate says. So my example is you have a middle childhood certificate for grades 4 to 9 in math and social studies. That individual can teach grade 3 through grade 10 any subject for FY21 only. A substitute license will never be considered certified. One other change for this year, if you hire someone in a permanent sub position, position code 225, which means we are guaranteed to have a substitute in our building every day. They will never be in the same place more than one day. They can never be considered a long-term sub. That portion of that definition was changed for FY21 only, not sure about beyond FY21, but they can now be attached to course as a long-term sub teacher of record. Are there any questions about the initial staff course collection?
Hello.
Okay. I have had several questions, and this actually goes along with the staff course collection. I have had several questions and seen several TLC reports where they have a slew of state staff IDs that are all 999999999, and they are not College Credit Plus or credit recovery courses. Or credit flex, excuse me, not credit recovery, credit flex courses taught by an outside contractor. The only time you can ever have a course with a staff member of all 9s is if that course is a College Credit Plus course not taught by an employee of your district, meaning taught by someone from the college, or it is a credit flex course taught by an outside contractor, expert in the field. Those are the only 2 instances where you can have all 9s for the state staff ID. I have seen several instances where people have assigned all of their remote learning courses to a teacher called Mr. Digital. And they have a state staff ID of all 9s. That is not valid. For all academic courses, and this year especially when remote learning is an option that is available to all students, those courses must have a certified teacher certified in those subject areas attached to the courses. Even if you are using an online programs such as Apex or any of those self-paced computer courses, the monitor of those courses has to be attached and they have to be certified in that subject area and listed as teacher of record. Are there any questions about this slide? Feel free to unmute yourself if you're muted, or
Those on the phone, if you want to mute, isn't it #5, Mary?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I only muted one person.
Okay. It's #5.
Or those of you that do have your computers, you can type in chat.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything in the chat so far.
Okay. The next item is KRA. This one closes February 22nd. You will have to get the file from KReady and import into student information. I don't have access to KReady, so I do not know the exact process or exactly where that file is, but I do know it is available. So if you have not received it, get with your test coordinator or whoever's in charge of KReady to get that file. There are missing reports. There's two types of errors. Student was enrolled in the assessment window, or the student was included in the vendor results. If a student was retained last year, they should not take the KRA again because those results were reported last year. So they should not be showing up. If they were reported correctly with a retained status, they should not be showing up as a enrolled in assessment window required to have results. Any questions about KRA? Fall third grade ELA and reading collection. This one closes March 5th. Import the records from AIR into student information. Select the type of OST and browse for your file. Again, there's two types of errors: enrolled in the latest test administration window and included in vendor results. My understanding is that there are no exemptions for students who are on remote learning and couldn't take the test, but students that are on remote learning only, I don't believe were allowed to take the test. So you will have to report those records with the appropriate score not reported. for any student who did not take the appropriate assessments. Summer and fall.
Mary, it's Kathy. Will you say
Yeah.
that again? So what about the online kids? They're not allowed to take the test, but they're going to be on our missing list. What was that about?
If they did not take the test, you need to add a record with the appropriate score not reported reason. But I do not believe that if they were remote only, that they were able to take the test, because these tests are to be monitored. And so if they're remote only, they were not able to take the test. So you're kind of in a catch-22, but there is no provisions for that I am aware of. Have you heard of anything, Annie?
Mary, just an FYI, I know we brought our remote students into one location
Okay.
and tested them.
Yes, that's what I've known some districts to do.
Okay. That's good to know, because that's, to my knowledge, that is the only way around it.
Does anyone know like what the testing window was? Like when they were supposed to? You said the ones that were enrolled during the testing window. Do we know those dates?
Usually early in October, but I don't know the exact dates offhand.
Okay, I was just curious. I can look it up.
I was gonna say we can find it for you too. I'll see if I can find something while we're on here.
Summer and fall end of course assessment. This one closes March of 2021. With this collection, you can submit the end of course exams that were based on courses taken in FY20. For those courses that were taken in FY20, report them as a score not reported of W, and the score is the equivalent of the grade that they received on their assessment or on their course. If it was a A, they get a 5. If it was a B, it's a 4, C is a 3, D is a 2, F is a 1. There is a export that you can do in student information. It's an analytics hub report that you can create an Excel file off of it. And then once you have that Excel file, if you need to make adjustments, you can make adjustments, and then you can upload that file. If you are on semester courses and the course really is a year-long course that they have to take both parts, then you can have them in the export and then just modify or add them to put in the subject area and then the score, so that when you upload, everything would be uploaded. Are there any questions about this one?
She's already beyond what I wanted to listen to.
Fall early learning assessment collection. This is the preschool ELA, and this one closes on April 2nd. Again, you get the import file from K-Ready. If there is a score of N that should be reported as a score not reported of S and a score of 3 asterisks. I believe when you load that file, it does load it that way. If it, when you do the load, if it sees the score of N, it will translate it to a score not reported of S and a score of 3 asterisks.
Mary,
Yes.
for the districts that I take care of, they've already been entered. However, if when they run their reports, they have any issues, just let me know.
Okay.
Mary,
Yes.
um, my teacher was saying that she was getting errors of NE. Is that the same as the N or N error or?
I am not sure on that. I don't
Yes,
know
it
what
is.
NE is.
Oh.
Oh, it is? Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Yes.
So
You're welcome.
NE and N will be an S reported with 3 asterisks?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
The next is calendar. The initial calendar collection opened and closed, and we're now on the final calendar collection. Update calendars as districts have changes in their attendance days. One big thing to mention is that when you transition from all remote to in-person or all in-person to remote, that does not require a change in your calendar unless the days that would be attended are different. For the districts that were all in person and they went to remote for a short time period because of high excess of COVID cases or quarantines to where they didn't have subs to be able to operate the school, you do not enter exceptions like we had to last spring. The state only wants to see a calamity day. Actually, it would be an unplanned full day, weather related. For days like yesterday, for those of you who canceled school because of the beautiful snow we have outside. If you used a blizzard bag yesterday, then you would put the blizzard bag exception in also. But just going from in-person to remote for a short time period does not require you at this time to do any changes on your calendar to indicate that you switched from in-person to remote. There are some changes that will be coming, but there is no guidance on any of that at this time. And as soon as we have guidance of any changes and what needs to be done, we will send that out to you. Submit your calendar changes frequently and verify your reports and make sure you're reporting the correct number of hours for every calendar. Also make sure that you have every student attached to the correct calendars. Are there any questions about calendars?
Mary, I'm sorry. I'm having some connecting issues and it's been a mess this morning, but I do have a question about calendar. So our high school, and this just started like 3 weeks ago, just the high school, on Wednesdays, the kids are coming 2 hours late. Do I need to put that on?
On the high school, you would put a planned shorten exception
Okay,
with the total number of hours the students would be attending. And
okay,
it would be just on the days that that occurs. So if they're going to do it every Wednesday until school's out, or just every Wednesday for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then you just put it on the weeks that are affected.
okay.
Don't you also, Mayor, I had that problem when our high school was doing the, late start on Wednesdays. And don't you also have to put like a time start on the clock?
Yes, you do need to, on the exception screen, there is the
Okay.
sub-calendar information. And on that sub-calendar, thank you, Sue, that is great. You need to put the start and end times for that sub-calendar for that day.
And I don't need a staff exception because they are working the whole time.
If it's not professional development, then you do
Okay.
not need a staff exception.
Okay,
If it's just kind of like a planning period to give them time
Right.
enough to get caught up on what they have had to do or whatever, then no, you would not have a staff exception.
okay, thank you.
Jenny, can you make sure that you tell me at CTEC what days those are so I can match you?
I thought that was Michelle at East.
Oh, it was Michelle?
Yes, it was.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was Jenny. Sorry, was not paying attention.
Voices sound similar. I'll give you that.
That's what I get for trying to do two things at once.
Child outcome summary. This one does not close until August 27th. There is only one collection for the complete year. So as you have assessments that need to be reported in that collection, go ahead and report them. The next two are available from ODE, but at this current time, student information is not ready to collect these collections for you to submit. The first one is the course grade collection. It will close in September 17th of 2021. And this will collect the grades earned in all courses in FY21. This is considered part of the L collection. I don't know exactly how this is going to look as far as, number one, what the collection request will look like on the EMIS screen in student information. When you go student information, EMIS, and then you have like your staff course collection, your student collection. I do not know exactly where this will be or what it will look like. And we don't have complete information as to how student information will be pulling everything out. It is scheduled to be in the December release, but we do not have a timeline of when we will receive that December release. So I cannot give you any guidance as to when that will be installed and available for you. The next one is the current graduation progress collection. This is what we'll collect for all of your grades 9 through 11. Actually, your current 12th graders too. How many credits they've earned in each subject category. This also closes September 17th of 2021. The transfer is not available yet in student information. However, if you go to the student collection to verify update, there is a verify update student course graduation progress, or a student course summary, I think is what it's called. You can go ahead and you can run that update, and it will create the course summary record for those students of how many credits they have earned in whatever subject category. There is no,
I believe it's the non-graduate course summary.
yes, yes, it is. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
The transfer is not available at this time. But you can run that there. We do not know yet when in December that release will come.
Mary, I have a question about the grades.
Okay.
I know that CTEC will report our grades, but because they put those in, but our satellite kids, do we only, I think I read it right, that I only have to report a final grade.
Yes.
So the school districts are not going to be the ones reporting that, right?
They do not report those courses, so they would not be reporting those grades.
Okay. So do I need to do that for like semester kids? Just make sure I go in, because I don't usually go in and put those until the end of the year.
I don't know all of the details on that, Shelley. I'm not sure I feel comfortable answering questions until I get all of the information from ODE and student information, how this is going to work.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to refrain from answering that part of your question at this time. It can be collected at any time, so it is possible to not report anything until the end of the year. And this first year is building the database. And so ODE would like the information reported as soon as it can be, but there are, it is not a report card item, so it will not have any bearing on the report card. And so if it's not reported until the end of the year, I don't believe there will be any issues on that.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any questions about any of the collections that I talked about before we move to the next topic? Okay. I had a question about CTE, FTE, and on the CTE, FTE reports, the student report, there is an error that you can get, SC0014, course CTE, FTE is higher than the student regular FTE. This occurs when the FTE calculated for the course based on the hours of instruction calculates higher than the student FTE based on the student percent of time, attached calendar, and enrollment start end dates. Where we've seen the course, this error the most has been in career techs or JVSDs where they have satellite courses. The first thing to look at is that the calendar that the student is attached
What
to
happened?
is accurate with the correct number of days and hours. If they have one way to look at the student to see how they are looking is on the homeschool's FTE detail, filter on the student name, see how many rows are for that student, add the rows together, and see what the FTE, and if there is an adjusted FTE, what the adjusted FTE comes to. If there is a large adjustment, especially on the FTE detail row that is for the career tech, then look to see what calendar that student is pointing to, and are they pointing to the correct calendar with the correct number of hours. Another thing is every time you add an FS standing, every time you add an FD record with an effective date, it recalculates that FTE percentage. It could be that when you take all of those little adjustments and you add everything together, it comes up to, let's say if you're the district and your total FTE should be 1.0, it may come up to 1.00325. That needs to be rounded back to 1. So then that causes that FTE adjustment error. Okay, let's take the career tech in this instance. So let's say you have your percent of time as 13, and you're getting your full 13% of time. When looking at the course enrollment start and end dates, the course hours of instruction, and all of the factors that calculate into the course FTE, that course FTE may calculate to be 0.138892. The student's FTE is 0.13. So then that student is going to be adjusted down on the course FTE to only get 0.13 because that's what the student FTE is for that student. So the things to look out here is the hours of instruction correct on this course so that it is calculating the correct course FTE. Is the agreed upon student FTE enough to get the career tech the appropriate student and course FTE that the career tech or JVSD should be getting? It needs to be a communication. One of the things that I have noticed on the reports I was looking at is if the student is taking 2 courses, then that doubles their FTE, but they're getting the full FTE for each course because when you take their course and compare it to their student FTE, that 0.13889 is less than their 0.26 student FTE. So you get the full FTE for a student that's taking 2 courses, but a student that is taking 1 if it's being rounded down like that, then I would look at, is the calculations for the course FTE correct? Or are you using an incorrect percent or length of scheduled instruction that is causing the course FTE to calculate higher than it should? Or should the student percent of time be adjusted to accommodate the course percent of time? Does this make sense?
So I do this for a living and I'm now lost.
Oh, no.
I was trying to follow you because I have so many of these. And I'm looking at, say, one kid at Licking Heights. And the student is taking only one course first
Okay.
semester and is taking 2 courses second semester. I look at the student's FTE and we're getting the full FTE for the student, but the career tech CTE FTE goes from 0.055556 to 0.051333. I've double checked their calendar. It's correct. It's saying it's our calendar. The student has been in the course from day one. I don't understand how, and not everybody in Licking Heights taking that course is giving me that course error.
We'll probably have to take a look at some of these one-offs individually. But what is the student's FTE on their FS standing, their percent of time?
I don't have that up and the internet keeps going in and out, so
Okay.
it's not letting me in. And if I remember right, I was getting the full, whatever Licking Heights is, it's either 13 or 14% or 12%, one of those.
Okay. We can take a look at those one-offs later. So if you have specific examples like that one,
Lots.
when you have full groups of students, and I can't remember which, it might have been Lakewood that I was looking at. It was one of them that you have everyone coded at 13% for a period.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all being adjusted from 13% from 13.13889 on the course back to 0.13 because their FTE that you're asking for from that school is only 13%. And the course FTE is calculated at 0.13889. So when it's calculated at 0.13889, the most you can get if that student is only taking one satellite course is 0.13 because you're saying that is all you're educating that student.
Right. And I understand those and those make sense, and I typically don't have hardly any of these. And this year I do have a lot. And it looks like it's mostly Granville, Licking Heights that I'm having the problems with.
We'll take a look at the one-offs individually, and when I get done with meetings this week, which hopefully will be by Friday, I can spend more time looking in your report and see if I can figure out why some of these are being adjusted the way that they are. But
Okay.
when my big thing is when you're seeing large groups of students in the same course that are being adjusted, should your percent of time you're asking from the district be 14 rather than 13? Or is everything on the course being reported so it is calculating the correct course FTE? Or is the length of scheduled instruction, the hours of scheduled instruction, too high so it is calculating a higher course FTE than what it should be?
Okay.
Those are the key questions on that.
Okay. Is that the same thing for the student CTE/FT is higher?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. It's when it's comparing the total FTE for the student and comparing the course. Yes.
okay.
I was also asked to talk about MAP courses, and I'm not sure exactly what all the questions are here, but I will go over MAP courses, and then if there's additional questions, please feel free to ask. MAP courses are only for career tech courses with a curriculum value that starts with a V. This is only needed when semester courses need to be reported as a year long in order to meet the CTE matrix, or when multiple sections, such as in a CBI work environment, needs to be combined into one section to meet the numbers requirement instead of showing the teacher is teaching 15 different small section courses. This is maintained in EMIS maintenance, MAP local classroom. You enter the from class, and then it will filter to only those courses that match the criteria to be able to be mapped to it. When you map a semester 1 and a semester 2 courses, the hours of instruction are added together. When you map a year long to a year long, they are not added together. If you have first semester courses you need to map together, and then second semester courses, such in the case of CBI work, map your first semester, all of your first semesters together to one, and then map all of your second semester courses to one, and then map your first semester to your second semester. When you have questions about mapping and need to have mapping done, please feel free to give me a call, and I will walk you through and take a look at your mapping and help you get that mapped correctly. Are there any questions about course mapping?
Can I just add one thing? When
Yeah.
you do map those together to make a year-long course, then that triggers ODE to tell you that that course is one that they're going to look at for concentration.
Okay.
Because they're only looking at VTs,
N and
and
VP.
yes. And they have to have those 120 some hours.
Yes. And that is a good point on that. So it is very important that you are looking at your career tech reports, your CTE, FTE reports, because things have been accidentally reported incorrectly in previous years, which is now causing impact on who ODE calculates should be concentrators. And then that causes issues now when, oh, well, that student shouldn't have been a concentrator, but yet they were reported 2 years ago in a method that led ODE to believe that they should have been. So it is very important that the correct hours and curriculum value is reported on all career tech courses.
You doing your EMIS?
Yes. And I got some information on that. I'll
Okay.
bring it to the meeting.
Oh, good. Is it?
It's convoluted,
Of
like
course it is.
everything ODE does.
Okay. Are there any other questions about mapping or anything else that I've talked about thus far? Okay. Now we're going to talk about ODEX. And this is because of things that Annie and I have been talking about and some of the things that we've been seeing, especially on the special ed. So I wanted to give a review of all of the modules in ODEX and all of the identifiers that are available in OEDs that can be granted to individuals so that they can have access to ODEX. The different modules that we have are the SCR, Student Cross-Reference, SOES, which are your students attending a community school that you as a resident district has to approve every month. College Credit Plus, tuition, and then under the records area, you can also see assessments, special education event information, and grad cohort. In order to have access to the different areas of ODEX, there are roles that need to be granted in OEDs. The role of EMIS coordinator automatically grants the individual, the EMIS coordinator, access to ODEX, but in order to do some of the other information, then they may need more access. You can also give others in your district access to some of the parts. So I tried to give a list here of every identifier that is in OEDs to give ODEX access. So I'm not going to read each one of these, but if there is someone in your district who would benefit by being able to go into ODEX, find a student and look at their special education events, then by all means have your OS administrator grant them the data view ODEX history GE so that they can go in and see what special ed events were reported either by the other district that they attended or by you if they were your student last year. Whoever needs access to be able to view the College Credit Plus data and approve that, yes, this student is our student and they are taking X College Credit Plus courses, then they need to have the verifier CCP identifier role. So who should have access? And I've just started the thought process here. This is not a requirement or an all-inclusive list by any means, but I would say your guidance counselors would benefit from the CCP roles, at least data view and probably verifier, because they're the ones that knows if those students are taking College Credit Plus courses or not. The ODEX history grad, so they can verify what graduation cohort a student is in. ODEX history FA for assessments, so that they can see what assessments the student has taken. ODEX history GE to look at the special education events if that student is a student with an IEP. Your special education department would benefit from having the ODEX history GE role, so that they can go in and look at students that came into you with a disability and be able to see what IEP information has been reported by the school they came from. Are there others in your district? Who approves tuition? Who should be entering in the tuition information? Who approves SOES? If those tasks do not fall to you, then there's probably someone else in your district that should have a role granted in OEDS that will give them access to information in ODEX. Are there any questions about this? Okay. That is all that I have prepared. Are there any questions that anyone has about anything?
It's Kathy. I do.
Okay.
Okay, it's on the like just the regular beginning of the year, mid-year, end year, and the building records. I feel like I don't know what we need to have and what we don't. Because it seems like they're always saying, oh, by the way, you don't need that, but it's still going to show up as a fatal on our report. So
okay.
List of what's needed and what's not.
They are always updating the manual with the latest information as EMIS changes are implemented. And when they did the November #2 EMIS changes on Monday, there was an additional fatal error added to the data collector for ITC IRN, because according to the FY21 changes, that is no longer needed at this time. And I don't know if student information will be removing that from the transfer, but at this time, it is still in the transfer of data from student information into the data collector. Yes, it is a fatal error because ODE doesn't need it, but it can be ignored because it is still part of your data that is being transferred over. There is no issue with transferring over information that is no longer required. If ODE doesn't want it, yes, it doesn't look good to have fatal errors, but in this case, fatal errors are accurate.
I don't like it, Mary.
I understand that. I would say keep up with the FY21 changes. Also, look at the manual and the district and building organization schedules. The beginning of it has the change list as to when changes were made to the manuals, and it would show you when there were elements added, when there were elements deleted. Student information tries really hard to keep up with their checklists. So you can always go out to the documentation, to the procedural checklists, scroll down to the EMIS section and pull up a new version of the student checklist to see if they had made changes to add or remove elements on the district and building required information. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with that. And I do agree with that, Kathy. When I got questions, as soon as I got my, I think, third question, it's like, I better send this out to everyone. The fatal error in this case is okay. And this is why.
I appreciate, and I do appreciate that. I mean, there's just certain things that like, okay, so I don't know if I need my district assessment window for my spring language arts. You know, I'm bugging these people for these dates and stuff, and I don't even know if it's still needed. So saying that they keep that up then in the
They keep that up in the manual, and student information tries to keep that up in the checklist. I'm not sure if that particular element is addressed in the checklist, but I do know that the manual will tell you whether or not that field is still required.
okay, good deal. Thanks.
There are sometimes the student information intentionally leaves some fields on the screen. They just exclude it from the export. Like for the longest time, and I think it's still there, all of the Calamity Day information, teacher professional development and parent-teacher conference day fields, all of those are still on the screen, but you don't put that information in there because all of that is being reported through exceptions on the calendar. So if those elements are transferred over, they're either ignored or they're fataled because you don't collect them that way.
And your checklist is very helpful. Usually it tells when it's needed to be reported. But if there are updates, like you said, you'll need to check that in the EMIS manual or the checklist in student information.
Hot in here. Can we turn it down a little bit? I'm trying to reverse.
Are there other questions?
Mary, it's Jackie. I do have a question on how to report students that are removed, and maybe I'm just making more out of this than I need to this year because of those that are all virtual, but they're removed from the home. So in one situation, I have a couple of students that live over that have been moved over to the Southwest Licking District and their foster place, but we're still educating them virtually. So does Mindy have to report them?
That
it's
would
starting to get kind of confusing.
That would fall under the ESSA changes that came out a couple of years ago. And I believe in that situation, you would just report them as a foster. I think there is even a situation that says that they're foster but remaining educated in our district.
Okay, so I used that the other day with a district, and she contacted me and said, well, okay, well, do I need to? She said, I probably need to put them in because you're going to, you know, she started saying all this stuff about being billed, and I said, we're not going to, we're even transporting these kids. So I guess that's where my confusion comes from, is the other districts want to put them in when I don't think they need to put them in.
You're correct. They do not need to put them in that case.
Okay.
And that's, and if they go back to those, I believe it was November of, Annie, was it 18 or 9? I think it was November of 18.
It was 18, yes. And
EMIS, the ODE EMIS presentation.
Okay.
And she had scenarios and examples of the students
I'll find it for sure.
going, they're a resident of A and they're foster placed in B, but they're going
Oh,
back to
okay.
A. Who
yep, I
reports
know what
in
you're talking.
this, right? Who reports in this situation? And their PowerPoint
Okay.
was really good in that if Annie can't find it, I know I still have that presentation, and I know it's
Okay.
on ODE's website that I can forward it out later today.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's helpful because, like I said, I'm having a hard time, I think, convincing in that district, you don't need to put the student in, but they feel they do. So that's probably been where I get confused, thinking, well, I thought it just makes it worse to me that they
Right.
would report them when they don't have anything to do with them.
Right. You used to have to, but
Right.
starting and I believe it was 2018 when
Okay.
all of this
Okay.
came out. It was the flow through district no longer has to report if they have nothing to do with the kid, even though there may be some transportation involved. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to report that kid. So there
Makes
are
sense.
quite a few, right? There are quite a few situations that fall into that, that flow through district does not need to do any reporting.
Okay, so
Their
Kathy.
IRN will be reflected, and it may cause an
Throw an
SCR
error.
error.
Yeah.
But
If
in
that's
this
what
case-
causes,
right,
yeah.
right. And in this case, that SCR conflict is fine, and you can ignore it. Just because there's a conflict does not mean that it has to be resolved, because there's a lot that won't be or cannot be. The only conflicts that will cause funding issue are the overlapping enrollments or the duplicate percent of times.
Well, Mary, I can tell them that you say these things and it matters to me, but to them, they're like, well, I'll check with my own ITC. You know, you get that kind
Right.
of thing sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's
And-
Kathy. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so are we what kind of situation are we talking here? Is this like if there's one district responsible and the foster parent lives in one district, but they want their foster kid to go to another district? Like an open enrollment situation? Is that what do you not report that open enrollment and you go back to the original district responsible?
Possibly. I would refer back to that presentation from Stacy and Kelly from I believe it was November of 2018.
Finding it, I'll let you know here.
I'll look for that too, because I try to save those, so I will look.
They should be out on ODE's website, and I know I
Okay.
have saved a copy of all of those also.
Okay.
But, Kathy, in most of those situations, if there is a district that the student is flowing through and really has nothing to do with, then that flow through district would not necessarily have to report that student.
Okay, so the flow through district in this case would be where the foster child is living with the foster parents.
Right.
Okay. Okay, good deal.
And I believe there is an EMIS situation that does say resident student foster placed coming back open enrollment.
Yeah, it's 455.
Okay.
And that's the one that I use, and then it throws up the error for the other district. And then I think well, gee, maybe I should just leave them, you know, as a full-time resident student, not mess with that other.
No,
But-
But
they want that for your report card data. You need
that
to-
makes sense, though. You're right, that it should be accurate on what the situation is for that student. So, okay. Just
Yes.
trying to convince other district that it's okay to live with that error.
Yes. Yes, and there's a lot of things with open enrollment too. So you need to be careful and make sure that you are accurately reporting if the student is truly open enrolled from that other district, that you are reporting it that way. If they're going for another reason other than open enrollment, then it should not be reported as open enrolled.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
So,
Any other questions?
okay, so it was actually November 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's November 2019. I have it. I can send it out to everybody if they want it.
This has nothing to do with what we just talked about, but can I make that reminder? If you have career tech in your districts, you need to start working on your March D follow-up stuff, because that's going to be coming out pretty soon. And I was supposed to be sending emails, and I thought, I'm just going to tell everybody.
Yes, and you can go to last year's Career Tech FTE, and you can filter that report on grade level to find who all were seniors last year, to know who you probably need to be collecting that March follow-up information from. But that's a
have
good
another-
reminder.
I have another question about concentrators, because we've always been told once a concentrator, always a concentrator.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got new information that this year, if the student is not a concentrator in the same field that you reported last year, or not taking any courses in that pathway, you're to remove the concentration.
Did that come from Career Tech, or did that come from Office of EMIS?
I don't remember, because I was freaking out thinking, what? Because I've got kids that can flip-flop. Say they go to Granville and they're a concentrator in, they take 2 courses in business. They come here as a junior and they're taking, say, digital design. If they're not taking any courses that this year as a junior, I'm to take out that concentration of business. But I have to remember, because if, say, the kid drops out mid-year and is not a concentrator in digital design, when he's a senior, he's going to be on my March D follow-up as a business concentrator. Yeah, that's the look I had.
I will get some more information on that.
And I'm thinking that came from Career Tech. If I remember right, I think it was Career Tech, but I can't remember 100%. And I also have
Okay.
another question about work-based learning.
Okay.
So Career Tech, in a meeting one time, we were talking about work-based learning, and at the end of the year, you're supposed to report work-based learning membership codes.
Okay.
Well, they're saying no, that's only supposed to be reported after they're a senior, and it's their total number of work-based learning hours while they're at their high school and while they're at a career tech. How am I to know if they ever have any work-based?
Yeah, but
at home
they're
school?
just chit chatting.
I will have to look more into the work-based learning on that, Shelley.
Well, because it's a new requirement now on March D follow-up for the total number of hours a student does work-based learning in that pathway only.
All these little flakes should have been Mindy's face. Oh, boy. Hey, it's amazing how innocent she gets when your door's open.
Does any of the high schools that are listening, do you guys do work-based learning?
Kelly, it's Kathy. Northridge does not, but my high school principal was asking me about it, but I know nothing about it. So, sorry.
Shelley, can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Does any of the high schools have work-based learning that they offer to their high school students that are in like career tech courses?
We do. We do have Mr. Muller's classes, so we do have like where they get credits for working. Yes, the CBI program, is that what we're talking about, Shelley?
Mary, is CBI part of? Yeah, it's part of the work-based learning.
Yeah, I think it would be part of it, but the CBI is not part of the March follow-up because it's not considered
not.
a pathway.
It's not. However, if the student would come to me at the end of their senior year, I have to add their CBI hours to any work-based learning hours that they obtain here.
Okay.
So Shelley, with that being said, we put those in an ad hoc at the end of the year.
Okay. So I could start emailing everyone at the end of the year saying, do you have any of these students that have work-based learning hours? Because I know North Fork's got a CBI, Lakewood. Are those the only ones with CBIs?
They may be the only ones now with CBIs. There have been others, but I'm not sure who all has them now.
Okay.
Are there any other questions